Wow. So I can't believe it's already the end of summer.
Is it?
Or as skiers like to say, it's end of bummer.
Oh, I've never heard that before.
Yeah, end of bummer because bummer, no snow.
You know what? I found out, though, that it's winter in the Southern Hemisphere. Have you ever thought about going down south to ski in July?
The short answer is yes. Yes.
Two college radio DJs during the 90s, hosts Keith and Steve, helped expose bands like Nirvana, Pavement, and PJ Harvey. They went to shows, interviewed musicians, and reviewed albums for various Zions and papers. They worked security at concerts, and once even did loading for Fish. Now they're dads. Whether you want to explore lesser-known music or take a trip down memory lane, tune to the New Dad Rock. Join hosts Keith and Steve as they navigate the 80s together, sharing their love of music across various eras and genres. Always well-intentioned, often well-informed, seldom boring. The New Dad Rock will expand your mind.
Actually, the Andes got blown out.
That's what I heard.
Like they got a ton of snow, like Utah levels of snow, where like they couldn't open the resort. But it's been hot here in the Northern Hemisphere, though. And what are some of the hot tracks that the new of Mr. New Dad Rock?
Okay,
Mr. New of New Dad Rock.
Thank you. I will say this: I picked Shabuzi, the Tipsy song, as the song of the summer. I picked it early.
Yeah,
I think it's currently.
Yeah, I listened to that and yeah.
I think it's been on the number one of the top Billboard 100 for 4 weeks in a row. So.
It was in like mentioned in the like video screen in my elevator at work.
Exactly.
Like, it's everywhere.
Okay.
I get it.
However, there's another song that I think wanted to be song of the summer, and it's not going to make it, but they pushed it really hard. It was that Morgan Wallen Jelly Roll song. A Little Help. No, wait, not Jelly Roll. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to insult Jelly Roll. No, I think it's Post Malone.
It is.
And the song is called With a Little Help or Help for My Friends.
Yeah, that's very original. I feel like that's might have been done before with the
Beatles. So anyway, I think Shabuzi's going to come out on top here, and I'm glad for it. I will say this though, that Jelly Roll had a bunch of performances this year, including he just released a new song, Lonely Roads, with Machine Gun Kelly. So Jelly Roll's been everywhere. So he has a song on my my like summer playlist, which I really love. But it was funny because I was talking to someone in the music industry, and I was mentioning that Jelly Roll is awesome, and he took out his phone, showed me the lock screen, and it was a picture of him with Jelly Roll. And the best part was his kids are jealous. Or jelly, I guess.
Nice.
Yeah. So it was pretty good.
Hey, it's rare us dads get to have our kids be jealous of what we do.
Totally. I actually had my cool ass Hardy Floafers. Have you heard of Floafers? Like floating loafers. They're like
okay, sure.
They're like Crocs, I guess, but for grown men. Anyway, Hardy did like a merch thing, so I got them because I had to get the Hardy ones. Everyone, thank you. Everyone makes fun of me for them. However, when I show them to
with reason,
the same guy, he took a picture of them, sent them to her daughter, and she was like, "No way! How cool! Where'd you get them?" So his 20-year-old daughter thought I was cool for having the Hardy Floafers.
Yeah, so that's what your summer playlist has been: Shabuzi, Morgan Wallen, Post Malone, Jelly Roll,
and
anything good, anything new dad rock.
Yeah,
that our listeners could latch on to.
The OCs, man, or OCs. They had the song called Earthling that I discovered in August, early August, late July. So I think it was the single off their new album. Have you heard Earthlings?
Yes. I know Earthlings.
Earthling.
Sorks 80 is the new album, and Earthling and Cassius, Brutus, and Judas were the two singles they launched ahead of pre-album, to give you a little teaser, a little taste, because the OCs are one of those bands, almost a predecessor, definitely a predecessor to the King Gizzard style, very prolific, will twist genres and make right-hand turns stylistically. And this one, I think it's their best in at least the last 4 or 5 albums by them.
I would agree with that. It also, I feel he's not playing that much guitar. He's doing way more keyboards or whatever they're called.
Yeah, there's a lot more keyboard. It's almost like a techno-punk. It's almost like music that was popular back in the early 2000s when John Dwyer was in whatever band he was in at the time, the Coach Whips, maybe?
That was Coach Whips.
Yeah, so it's funny. He has music that's reminiscent of 2000, 2001, 2002, and he was an active musician at the time, but he didn't sound like that back then.
No, but he did. He was in this, I'm going to, for lack of a better term, fake German performance band, a fake gay German performance band called Ziegerbahn Croft or something. I can't even say it, but I saw them play live. So he did make music that was like aggressive and electronic back in the day also.
Yeah. Yeah, so if you're into the techno punk, which is a lot more of the new Datarock style, as determined by me,
yes,
rather than the pop pablum, check out Sork's 80 by OCs, the OCs, John Dwyer, whatever you want to call it.
Dude, I know we might have over-indexed on the King Gizzard Lizard Wizard in the 70s, the episodes during the 70s, but what's new with the Gizzard?
Well, what's new with the Gizzard? So back in August, they put out their 26th album in, I think, 12 years, called Flight B741. And the shtick this time, they, you know, how they're genre hopping. Each album is a different style almost.
Yep.
I've seen a lot of outlets describing this as their dad rock album.
Are you serious? I didn't see that.
Because it's very jammy. It's very 1970s guitar rock oriented. Although clearly with a very King Gizzard guide. A couple of my friends referred to it as it sounded like Rolling Stones, and it, you know, kind of that bluesy harmonica jamming, you know, major chord progression I could see, but I had to squint really hard to find that. Other people are saying the band. I don't.
Yeah, I'll tell you what popped into my head, which is really strange, but it sounded like a Fish studio album, like mid-Fish.
I definitely picked that out on a couple of songs. So, you know, there's mutual respect between Fish and Trey Anastasio, and I think they're kind of a little bit of a call and response right now. And, you know, they did have an album called Fishing for Fishies. Just, you know, interpret that as you may. But yeah, I definitely heard that a couple of times, and I was like, oh, I could see where this is going to get jammed out live and be, you know, a much more compelling song. And I've certainly had that feeling about Fish songs.
Oh, wait, what year did Fish start?
Well, I know Junta was like 89, or was it 88?
Oh, yeah, they're already touring by 88. Oh, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know the Fish timeline.
Yeah.
I only bring it up because...
Because we're supposed to be talking about 1988 this episode, and here we are 10 minutes in, and we're like, hey,
well,
did you hear the new Morgan Wallen song?
We had to talk about the summer. Totally. Okay, so yeah, it seems that they formed in 83, so they've already been playing, which is something that I've picked up on lately, is now that we're listening to music that I listen to in real time, I'm also like uncovering the work the bands did before they were the band I know of. The example is I'm reading an Alice in Chains book right now, and I don't think their first thing comes out to 90, but you know that they're already in bands in the mid 80s, and they've met each other in like the mid to late 80s. So something that we never really talk about is the behind the scenes, if you will, like, or the before times, right? Like before you know of the band, all the work they put in to become the band they are. But that's where we are.
Yeah, but to be fair, in 1988, we were, what, 15 years old, 16 years old?
And no internet.
Exactly. So what we were listening to was a lot of what was popular, whether it was in the genre that we had, the tribe that we had fallen into. Mm-hmm. So I was listening to metal, and most of these episodes we talk about what we listened to in the year. And I look back at 1988, and I'm looking at all the albums that came out in 1988, and I'm like, Iron Maiden, Queensrÿche, Metallica, Slayer, all metal bands. And, you know, that's all I listened to then.
What jacket were you wearing? I imagine you have a cool jacket, right?
I mean, I had a jean jacket. And at one point in high school, I had a trench coat, but maybe not in '88.
Yeah.
That might have come a couple of years later.
Nice.
Yeah.
Did your jean jacket have any covers on the back, as was the trend?
I didn't have like the thing sewn on the
Yeah, me
back. I
neither.
just had the buttons, right?
The buttons?
Remember the little buttons?
I have a
Yeah.
bunch of buttons
The
downstairs.
pins.
I got buttons.
So 1988, I think we talked in at least the last couple of episodes about how at this point we're cognizant of music. We're 15, 16 years old, and we've been listening to bands, and they've put out an album or two while we've been listening to them. And you get to the point and you're like, okay, is the next album going to be better than the ones before? And like I said a minute ago, I was a metalhead. So back then, they weren't known as this at the time, but the Big Four all put albums out in 1988. So you have Injustice for All with One, which was everywhere.
It was everywhere.
You must have,
Yeah, totally.
yeah. You didn't know anything about Metallica prior to that video, I bet, Keith.
Well, maybe because of Chris, I did, because the albums before that. But I want to say, is One the video where it's based on the World War I book where the guy loses his arms and legs and his eyesight?
Exactly. It's a black and white video. Yep. It's like yeah, and that song was ubiquitous for like 2 years straight.
It was. That was their breakout.
You know, for me at that point, it was, you know, the third Metallica album that Ride the Lightning was already out when I listened to them, so I got to go through Master of Puppets. I got to go through the 590 ADP. I got through Justice, and I was a little bit disappointed because it was kind of rehashing the same thing. You know, there's all the stories about Jason Newsted and the bass being buried. And in 1988, I didn't recognize this, but years later, as I got older, and I think we mentioned this in the episode about the Cure and bassists, that I love the bassist. So if the bassist is missing, like it was for Justice, I don't love it as much.
Oh, was this the Cliff Burton's no longer in this?
Exactly. Like you reminded us a couple episodes ago. So yeah, so Metallica put out their album. Slayer put out South of Heaven, which was solid. You know, a couple really great songs, including the title track, but solid, not great. Anthrax, State of Euphoria, a total miss after Among the Living came out in 87, which is definitely Anthrax's best album. But you can see why Anthrax is considered number 4 in the Big Four because of State of Euphoria. And Megadeth put out So Far, So Good, So What, which was again, strong. In My Darkest Hours on that album, which is a fantastic song. But that one's a little bit of a miss. So
yeah, the title kind of says that. So far, so good, so what? Yeah, kind of. Yeah.
So I mean, I can go about 80s metal for probably this whole episode. But what were some of the things that you were listening to? Because like we identified a couple episodes ago, genres were breaking, the branches were growing, and you were just getting further and further out on that limb. There wasn't a lot of crossover. You didn't interact with the groups, right?
Well, there was one album that was crossover, that Queensrÿche Operation Mindcrime album. Okay. That was kind of like, at that time, I compared it to Pink Floyd because I feel that was a heavy concept album.
It definitely was. And so Queensrÿche like I always considered myself a metalhead in the 80s, the late 80s. Yep. And Queensrÿche was definitely at the lighter end of it. Yep. Rage for Order, very keyboard, very stylistic. But I love that album. So when Operation Mindcrime came out, I was just blown away. Yeah. It's a 15-song concept album about spies and people being drugged and political assassinations. It's very 80s technical noir thriller. Let me tell you, when I got home from school every day, I listened to that album. I couldn't wait to get off the bus, get up in my room, play Queensrÿche Operation Mindcrime every day after school for like months straight. Months. Yeah. And these guys, because they were at the lighter end, they were more popular. I mean, they had all the rock hooks. So glorified pop songs, if they were recording now, they would have had a country flair to it. They would have had a slide guitar and some pedal steel. And, it would have come out the same. And in fact, I saw Jeff Tate last winter at a show at some small theater in Patchogue, and people were into the show. But anytime a song from Operation Mindcrime, he played 4 or 5 of them, the crowd went nuts.
I can imagine. Patchogue's pretty far out. How far from the city is that? Is that 2 hours by train?
It's like a solid hour and a half.
Wow. Cool. All right. Yeah. So back to what I was listening to, which I heard some Queensrÿche, by the way, and I liked it. I was adjacent liking. One thing I've been thinking about is about half the music I listened to back in the day didn't have live drums. Erasure, Depeche Mode, which, by the way, this year, Music for the Masses comes out. Great album. Not a letdown at all. It was also the first concert I went to. And it was at Jones Beach. And it was amazing because everyone in the audience was singing. And I just saw them again, I think last year or the year before, on their most recent tour. I think only 2 of them are left. And it was, again, amazing because the Depeche Mode crowd, the audience, is so into it. It's just amazing. I'm just so excited that I got to see them as my first concert. But I also realized they do live drums now, which is cool, right? Like musicians are so much better now.
They're definitely triggering samples, but for the most part, it's a live drum.
Yeah. But they're also like the drummer's not in the band. The drummer's not writing the songs. These are session musicians or tour musicians, just great musicians who...
Yeah, they're hired hands. They can get the job done.
Dude, but...
Rather than some drug-addled weirdo.
Totally, who's pressing a button. It's amazing. I definitely feel... Drum machines, I mean, did New Order have a live drummer? Like, I don't even know, but like OMD.
I feel...
Yaz, like all these bands, like half the music I listen to. Echo and the Bunnymen, in fact, before when they first started, they had a drum machine. In fact, Echo is the name of the drum machine.
Yeah. Well, look at one of the biggest albums of the year. I know it came out in '87, but Def Leppard Hysteria, they had to have electronic drums because the drummer lost an arm in a car accident a couple years prior. And they're like, instead of replacing the drummer, they got him an electronic drum machine where he could trigger the different beats and samples. So Hysteria dominated '88, even though it came out in '87.
Yeah.
Ministry, Land of Rape and Honey, with the song Stigmata.
I love that song.
Kind of, that got the industrial sound.
It really did.
Really kick-started. And that's a place where, again, it's electronic drums. That's not I guess Martin Atkins played with them too, though. So they did have a live drummer, but very electronic.
Wait. Quick question. The first Ministry album was Twitch, right?
No, it was before that. There was With Sympathy. Twitch was kind of when they started to get into, because at first they were very light, poppy.
Yeah, that's what I was asking. Okay, yeah.
And then Twitch kind of was the first one that moved over, and the Land of Rape and Honey is this. This is the last step of evolution. So if you think of that shirt where you have the ape, and then you have the more upright gorilla, and then you have the
guy at the keyboard,
caveman. Yeah. So exactly. So this is the last step before the full-on industrial sound takes over. But Stigmata.
Yep.
For my money, Ministry's best song.
I'm a big fan of Jesus Built My Hot Rod because was that Gibby Haynes?
Yes.
That's cool. I mean, that's just a fun song. It's unique. Yeah. By the way, that is interesting. So a lot of bands don't go through genres, but Ministry actually found their sound over a couple albums. A lot of bands are the same all the way through, I'd say.
They came out in the early 80s when New Wave was popular. They were not very successful, so they had to modify their sound to get acceptance, to get attention. And the direction they went in was industrial. So, around 87 or 88, you're starting to see Headhunter by Front 2.
Oh, love that song. Oh, man.
You have Skinny Puppy is 2 or 3 albums deep at this point. I go back to the metal scene. Like the Big Four were established. They put out an album, mid-tier on all 4 examples. Testament puts out The New Order, Overkill puts out Under the Influence, Death Angel puts out Frolic Through the Park. So you have that second wave of thrash coming through. And then along the lines of Queensrÿche, you have the stories being told. So the big one from 87 was King Diamond Abigail. He follows it up with his album Them. Again, another concept horror story album I couldn't get enough of.
Yeah, that very, 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 very interesting. Because a lot of these bands I feel played with Fishbone.
Did they? Like, as Fishbone as an opening artist?
Or like one of those, or you're playing smaller clubs, right? So it's 3 or 4 bands.
Right.
But I remember Fishbone playing with all of these thrash bands, or Ministry for sure, which is really interesting because Fishbone is a entirely unique sound.
But keep in mind, Faith No More has been around a couple of years. You have Suicidal Tendencies, I guess not as funky, but they had crossed over from the skate punk into the thrash. You know, How Will I Laugh Tomorrow When I Can't Even Smile Today, that came out in 88. So you have that going on, and what's the Red Hot Chili Peppers doing at this point?
Oh, is that Mother's Milk that year, or is that next year? Jane's Addiction, Nothing Shocking came out in 88?
That is shocking.
Seriously, how far ahead are they of everyone at that moment? Like, when did Guns N' Roses come out? Was that 87, 86?
Guns N' Roses was 87.
Wow.
And Nothing Shocking is 88. And it's the same scene. It's that Venice Beach. It's that Hollywood scene. And
Okay. I've never...
This is the next step of evolution.
Holy crap.
And
if I could go back in time and be part of, let's call it 2 years. Strangely, I think late 80s LA is probably freaking badass.
it's got to be insane. Or you
Red Hot Chili Peppers. Oh, my God. Jane's Addiction? I mean, because they're done by 91, 92, aren't they? They don't last much longer.
Well, pretty much. I mean, the first Lollapalooza was 91.
Yeah.
And then they put out another album after that, or
that was probably the album.
Not until like 10 years later.
Yeah.
Yeah, so at this time, and you know, speaking of Lollapalooza, the Butthole Surfers, which I can't believe they became a mainstream band. 1988, they put out Hairway to Steven. I mean, it's spelled Steven, which I like to say that way for obvious reasons, but it's Hairway to Steven. And the conceit about that album is all the album titles were just like a crude drawing. So I didn't even know the true names of the songs until probably when Napster came out.
You know, interestingly, R.E.M. had Document before this, and in 88, Green comes out. So I'm actually a Document fan. And so Green was an album I bought. I remember I bought it before I went to rifle practice because there was the record collection, was the name of the record store that was next to the Massapequa High School. So I remember going there, buying the record, because I have a record player by now. By the way, the irony of it being a yellow or orange record called Green. Yeah. Went to rifle practice, went home, listened to it. I love that album. World Leader Pretend is on it. Is that Orange Crush is on that one?
This was probably the biggest album of my high school. Like, it was played at every party.
Yeah.
Like, this more than anything else, for better or worse.
Yeah, I gotta say, it was probably my favorite album of the year, though. Music for the Masses might have came out that year by Depeche Mode, which obviously my first concert's ginormous. I mean, I don't think I heard Jane's Addiction, Nothing Shocking that year, but I mean, that album could easily win Best Album of the Year.
Here's a funny way to look back at 1988. You know the movie Donnie Darko, right?
Yeah.
It's set in 1988. Ooh. So it's set in the fall of 1988. And Donnie Darko is like a sophomore in high school. Or no, he's a junior in high school? Yeah, because Elizabeth is going to go work at the yarn barn instead of going to Harvard. And anyway, so I'm the same age as Donnie Darko, like school year wise. And I go back and listen to those songs. So, you know, the Reflex is in there. The Killing Moon is in there. Under the Milky Way.
That's pretty good, actually, because I just actually looked up the soundtrack. A Mad World is also in there. Is that Tears for Fears? And
it was Tears for Fears originally, but this is a much mellower, more melancholy cover of it by Gary Jules.
Nice. Well done. That is really impressive work. Oh, okay. Last thought from 88. I'm in 10th grade. For whatever reason, I have third period free. So you're in high school now, you're allowed out for lunch. So third period is probably 10 o'clock, but I'm allowed out. I'd go to D's Pizza all the time, which is a couple storefronts down from the record collection, right next to the high school, with my friend Steve Reed, and we'd basically listen to Desire by U2 over and over again and order a slice of pizza.
Like a candle on fire.
Yeah, Desire is a pretty good song.
So 88. What a weird year. I'm looking at all of the things that were popular in 1988, and the fact that Metallica won, Def Leppard, Hysteria, the original version of Fast Car, Mother by Danzig, Lita Ford and Ozzy, Close My Eyes Forever. This was the peak of probably of Stryper. You have New Kids on the Block, Hangin' Tough.
Oh, great album.
Butthole Surfers, Hairway to Seven. It's just mind-boggling how different everything is. And Jane's Addiction, nothing shocking. Like, of course nothing's shocking anymore because everything's permissible. And 1988, I think, has to be regarded as a high point for variety and just pure difference in what is popular, what is allowed.
Yeah, you kind of mentioned before about the branches of the tree. Like, you really are, like, people are separating. Like, thrash is something and glam is something. Right? Like,
yeah.
What the hell is Fishbone? You obviously have the wave.
You have like Death and Violence and Creator like doing this really like prototypical growling, like that's being pushed to the extreme.
What I like about this episode is we actually haven't talked about anything that was quote unquote popular. Like some of these songs might have been popular, like One by Metallica, or obviously Pour Some Sugar on Me, which was a last minute song they added to the album. That was probably the song of the year. But like, we're talking.
I mean, Punk Rock Girl and Danzig and Lita Ford and Cinderella. And R.E.M. All that.
It was It's not all of it though. We didn't talk about pop music at all.
But you're right. At this point, pop music is just another genre.
It is,
and it might be more popular than the other genres, but it's bifurcated.
Well, it's also that we know how to go find the music we want now. We can actually buy the music we want to listen to, right? Like
yes, because we're big boys at this point.
Oh, big boys! You know, my kids are about to be big boys. Wait, how old? Wait, so I'm 10th grade. Jasper's going 9th grade. Yeah. Wow. So in a year they're going to hit their 88. That's crazy.
That is a funny way to think of it. So, dear listeners, what were you listening to in 1988? Did you eat one too?
That's what I was looking at too, buddy. Oh, man. Is that the first Hagar album or the second one?
That's the second one. So 5150 was the first one, which was 86.
Wow. Cool.
86. And this one was, it was sophomore slump of the Hagar era.
Well, it's okay. 88, my first concert, Depeche Mode. Highlight of my year.
I saw Iron Maiden on the Seventh Son of a Seventh Son of a Seventh Son tour. I saw the Metallica and Justice for All tour with Queensrÿche opening.
Nice.
They weren't able to play all of Operation Mindcrime, but they got a few songs in. Anthrax I saw on the State of Euphoria tour.
Hey, I just want to say I hope you had a good summer, Steve, because, the bummer's over and the winter's coming.
Winter is coming, and so is 1989.
Woo, yeah.
We'll see you next time on
the new Dad Rock.
Gallivanting through the ages.
Together.